All right. It is Wednesday, July 20th, 2022, and you are tuned in to the Helping Friendly podcast. My name is Brian. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Megan. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing very well. I just wrapped up an episode talking about Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band in mid-1985, and now I get to talk about Fish playing a Tweezer Fest from the
Mm,
Mann Music Center. Is it
so
the
fun.
Music Theater or the Music Center? I don't know. I'm
I
not from
think it's the center,
Philadelphia.
but I
I
don't
think
really
it's the
know.
center. Beautiful venue. I've only seen one show there, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous venue from July 19th, 2022, which that show occurred 19 years to the day after my third Fish show. I saw the Leo Trio. I saw an amazing
Mm.
Piper. I saw an incredible You Enjoy Myself Alpine 2003. Check it out if you have not listened back. We're not here to revisit 2.0 as much as I would
Thank
love
God.
for us to on a show by show basis. We are here today with a couple of incredible guests. We have a stacked lineup here today.
Yeah, this is all star.
We have some all-stars come on. We've got Scott Marks as well as Tim Donahue and Kevin Hogan of Wook Plus. Scott Marks can be found online at Biz Archive. You probably already follow him if you follow HFPod. If you don't, I don't know what in the world you are doing, because there's nobody that has more up-to-date stats and info about Fish shows during the show and then in between shows and in between tours than Scott Marks. I rely heavily on his insight and his
Oh, yeah.
information. I love talking fish with him. Tim and Kevin from Wook Plus, you can see their Twitter handles on the screen. We've been partnering with Wook Plus throughout this tour to bring you coverage, both this type of coverage immediately, or not even immediately. I don't know why I said immediately. I have so much to get through. This type of coverage, the middle of the day after a show happens, and their type of coverage that happens right before as well as right after each shows. And we would encourage all of you to tune into Wook Plus for more great content. The Lot, their pre-show is Wednesdays throughout tour prior to each Wednesday show. And their wonderfully named After Fish Show After Show launches 15 minutes after each concert ends. You can watch them on Twitter at Wook Plus, as well as on YouTube. Search for Wook Plus.
And I'll be on tonight.
You'll be on tonight. And you were on
I'll be
another
on
podcast
tonight.
today, weren't you?
I was, yeah. So my episode of Attendance Bias went out today, and I'm talking about 7/21/97, one of my favorite shows. And just, you're going to learn a lot about me, maybe more than you want to know. It's like a classic Megan overshare. So check it out.
It's a great episode. You talk about a great show, and shout out to Brian from Attendance Bias. He does incredible work. We love him over here. All right, let's talk before we bring Scott, Tim, and Kevin on. Let's talk about, we've got a couple points of business that you're all going to want to hear about, I promise. Let's talk Passion House first.
First of all, here at Osiris, we are powered by many things, but the first thing we're powered by every day is coffee. And it's Passion House coffee. And we actually have our very own blend. I just got mine in the mail yesterday, Ocean of Osiris. And my daughter tried some this morning and a pour over, loved it. I had some too over some ice. It was delicious. So check it out, passionhousecoffee.com. You can get some of this, our new coffee, or any of their other coffees. And you can use the code OSIRIS, and you're going to get free shipping on every order, which is a really good deal. So that code is OSIRIS. We also have this really fun contest that we're going to be running all summer long. So for every Fish show, we're giving away bags of Ocean of Osiris coffee every time Fish plays an ocean song. So if you hear an ocean song, you're going to tag OsirisPod and Passion House Coffee on Twitter, and you can use the code, the hashtag Ocean of Osiris, and we're going to select winners. So we have a winner because they played MoMA Dance last night, right? So who's our winner today? It is Josh Ziesmer. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who is at JS Ziesmer at Twitter. So congrats, Josh. And I hope you like your coffee.
Absolutely. Great, great coffee. Awesome, awesome people over there at Passion House. We love their coffee and we love partnering with them for this sort of stuff. The other things that we want to tell you about, Osiris Live. We had an amazing live event. Megan, can you give us a quick breakdown of the July 18th live event from the Ardmore Music Hall?
I could go on forever, so I'm just going to make this brief, but the event was awesome. RJ did an amazing job interviewing these 3 artists. And the reason that this was so special was because these conversations were super intimate. He was asking questions, the kind of things that you always want to know. You really want to know, like, what does Tom Hamilton really think about being in a Grateful Dead cover band? And it was just incredible hearing their answers and just getting to know them as artists. And they played 3 sets of incredible music. They had an amazing backing band. We got to meet everybody after. It was just a really cool, chill, awesome event. So if you can make one of these, you have to. They're super cool and so much fun. I danced a lot.
Lots of dancing, some great conversations, some incredible music, a great way to learn more about some of your favorite artists, as well as artists that you may be discovering, as well as hear some live music. It's kind of us taking the podcast to a concert in a really cool way. And we have a couple more that are coming up here before the end of summer tour. First and foremost, you know that Phish is coming to Atlantic City. It's on the beach. Come on, Atlantic City, win some money. Don't lose money. Just win money. You know, it's Atlantic City. All you're going to do is win money, right? Right. That's what
Of
happens.
course. Yeah.
August 5th, 6th, and 7th, you can get your tickets for Phish Atlantic City at osirispod.com/AC. In addition to that, we have a full weekend of free events for you in Atlantic City. On Saturday, August 6th, we'll be at the Anchor Rock Club from 2 to 4 p.m. We will recap the first night of Phish there, and then we'll hear Disco Biscuits guitarist John Barber play an acoustic set for us. You can come for the discussion. You can also stay for the music, get a couple of beers, and enjoy Saturday afternoon out in the sun. And then on Sunday, August 7th, we're working with the auction platform Whatnot, the internet's fastest growing collectible marketplace, to hold an auction benefiting the Waterwheel Foundation. From 2 to 4 p.m. as well, we'll be discussing Phish with special guests, auction off Phish vinyl, posters, shirts, and other hard to find memorabilia. Join us for both these events. We want to thank our sponsors once again at Tonewood Brewing. We'll have many of their amazing beers on tap. These are free events, but you need to reserve a spot at osirispod.com/OsirisLive. And when you go there to reserve your spot for the AC event, stick around because there's 2 other events that you're going to want to buy tickets for. We have an event that we just announced yesterday in Milwaukee on Thursday, August 11th, ahead of Phish's 3-night run at Alpine Valley. We are going to be at the Cooperage, which is a killer venue right on the river. There's kayaking that you can do off of the venue. They actually run shuttles from the Cooperage to the Alpine Valley shows for Phish. It's a very Phish-friendly bar. Amazing people there. RJ and I will be there to run a show which will be music and conversation featuring one of my favorite singer-songwriters, guitarists, musicians of all time, Mr. Riley Walker. I cannot wait for this event. It's going to be great to get to the Midwest and hang out for that. Get your tickets for that at osirispod.com/OsirisLive. And finally, I promise we're getting to the show here in a second, but I got to tell you, if you're coming out to Dick's, and I know I'm going to be here, I moved to Denver just for this week. I promise everyone out there. Larimer Lounge on Wednesday, August 31st. Music and conversation featuring Taper's Choice, one of my favorite bands out there right now. So many deep, deep, deep jams. Myself, as well as HFPod co-host, all around incredible dude, Broke Down Pod host, Mr. Jonathan Hart, will be interviewing the dudes from Taper's Choice. Then they will play a show. There's got to be taping Taper's Choice, which will then go up on Relisten and archive for all of you to dig and be like, I was there, man. I saw it. So get your tickets for that at osirispod.com/OsirisLive. We'll tell you much more about these events throughout the tour, but we need to get to the show.
Yeah.
We need to bring on our incredible guests here today. Let's bring on Mr. Scott Marks. How are you, Scott?
Doing great. How are you?
Hey, Scott.
Well, man. Welcome to HFPod.
It's good.
And let's bring on, it's good to have you here again. And let's bring on Tim and Kevin from Wook Plus. What's up, dudes? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
You guys.
Doing very, very well. So all of you guys went to the show last night at the Mann Music Center in Philadelphia. This was Phish's first run at the Mann since... Was this the first since 2016?
Yes.
Wow, crazy. Yeah, because they went to
Yeah.
Camden in 2019.
Yeah.
Tell me, have you guys seen shows at the Mann in the past? And Scott, starting with you, what are your thoughts on the venue overall?
I think it's gorgeous. You don't see a lot of venues with like a wooden ceiling, wooden balcony. So like, I was the back of the pavilion last night. Just looked up and you see wood and not concrete, where
Mm.
or metal structures. It's a nice venue. It's in a park and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it feels really nice when you get there. And I was thinking, someone sent me a picture from Great Woods last week, and I was looking at the roof there, and there's just like a lot of like stuff flapping in the wind, and the metal looks a little bit rusted. And this is just like a beautiful, beautiful interior. I've been there once, and it just blew me away. What about you guys, Tim and Kevin? What are your thoughts on the overall Mann?
I think if you're in a pavilion, it's probably one of the nicer venues. It's also really intimate and small. And so it's like there's a dichotomy there because once you get into the lawn, though, it quickly turns from one of the best venues to one of the worst. There's like absolutely no view on the lawn, and the sound quality kind of crap. So it definitely, like, I know some people are always pavilion, some are always lawn. For me, I tend to lean lawn at most venues, but for this venue, if you're going for the first time, it's definitely worth getting in the pavilion, even more than other sheds, because the lawn's not great. The lot is fucking great, though. The trees and the grass, and not just being on, asphalt or
a cornfield.
Yeah.
I've only been to the Mann once before. I saw Trey Band there in 2001, maybe.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they did. He did a 35-minute Mr. Completely that night. It was pretty out of hand. And I really, walking back in there last night, I didn't even it didn't like kick in my brain say, oh my God, I remember this place. So
they changed it a little bit, though. They like fenced off an area and added some more tents and things, but
got it.
But yeah, I got in the pavilion. I sat in the pavilion with him for the first 4 songs, and then I went out on the lawn just because I don't deal well with
it was hot.
Everybody next to you, you only have that much space on the lawn. Sure. At least you can fall down and be an idiot.
Well, this provides a good segue here. Last night was the 4th night of tour. Fish opened the tour last week with Thursday, Friday, the very unique Thursday, Friday run, and then at Great Woods, and then a Saturday night in Bangor. And then they said, hey, we're going to play a 30-minute Down with Disease for you all, and we're going to give you guys Sunday night off because you're going to need it to re-listen to this and try to understand everything that was happening. But 4 nights into the tour, we're in the tour now. This is like when you start the second week of the baseball season. You're like, oh yeah, there's just baseball on constantly for the next 6 months. This is the greatest thing on earth. I want to ask you guys about the vibe of the show. And the vibe of the show segment is sponsored by Section 119, which is the premier apparel brand where many fans shop to represent their favorite band in everyday life. You got sophisticated designs and epic quality. Section 119 offers donut-inspired button-down shirts, board shorts, dry fit polos, and hoodies, among many other awesome clothing types. You can see it on the screen here. Use code summer 2020. Use code summer22 for 20% off your next purchase. Scott, tell me at this point in the tour, what is the overall vibe as you're coming into the Mann last night?
You're muted.
I think you're muted right now, Scott.
Hi.
There he is.
I'm back. No, it was hot. Like heat index of close to 100 degrees yesterday, and I think that kind of affected everybody. They had switched it where instead of bring a 20-ounce bottle of water, you could bring a full jug. And so I finished almost a gallon of water during the show last night and sweat all off. I was in the upper part of the pavilion. I think once the show started, the first Space Oddity in 5 years, I think that kind of really got things off to a good start. And then you have a couple of songs that are space related, and the Haleys with the 17 minutes, and which is the longest since Portland '99, and the second set, which we'll talk about later, kind of speaks for itself with the energy that was blasting through that place. Really, I thought this show was head and shoulders above the first three overall, just with themes and with jams and consistency, especially in that second set. A couple of areas that weren't as clean for compositional parts, but you find that a lot of shows. But overall, I think this is the best show of the tour so far.
I agree with that, and I'm just looking at the gap chart right now on fish.net, and it completely went over my head when it started last night. That was the first Space Oddity since the Baker's Dozen, 7/28, 2017.
Yeah.
You're right, 154 shows since Double Chocolate Night. Really, really cool, not only to open up with a cappella tune, but also to open up with a song that's such a huge bust out like that. Really kind of set the tone, and yeah, that space theme really took over the first quarter of it. Kevin, Tim, what was the vibe of the show like for you guys?
I love Philly. Philly has an energy that you don't get in other places when you see a show, and I thrive in it. When I walked in there, I was like, yeah, we're here. We're gonna do this tonight. And I felt like the crowd, the energy was expecting, all right, you did that banger, what you got for us tonight? And they delivered.
Super hot though. Scott's 100% right. Like that kind of carries over everything else. Like it was very hot out, but it was so much fun. Once the music started, it didn't really matter. It was just kind of leading up to the show.
The last show I went to that was as hot as you guys experienced was Deer Creek 2010. The first night was it was like a swamp in there. And I remember trying to go and get a water midway through the second set and just being like, I need it right now. And they had closed down all stands, and it was, 16-year-old kid behind the counter being like, sorry, we can't sell you any water. And I'm looking at like just stacks of Dasani water. I'm like, just give me one. Nobody's going to pay attention. Well, let's jump into the overall first set here. So the first set reads Space Oddity, Martian Monster, Halley's Comet, Stash, Moma Dance, Gotta Jaboo, Shade, Old Home Place, and Walls of the Cave. I watched this from home, but you guys were in the venue. Kevin and Tim, what was your overall highlight of the set, and what were kind of your larger thoughts on the first set?
I think definitely for me it was the Haley's. The Haley's Jam was really awesome, and the space theme, like I guess I don't know if there's other news, but I thought instantly, like, just with James Webb and everything, and how it's been such a prominent thing in like our general lexicon. Everybody's really excited about space, so like I was really digging that, but beyond that, I was not as high on this first set as I feel like a lot of other people were. Like I felt like they played well. Like I thought they played well and it was clean. I just, I think it wasn't one of the strongest sets. I think the second set more than triple, makes up for it. So overall, I think it averages out as the best show. But the first set was a little weak in my experience last night.
I like the first four songs. I was like all in on it. I'm on Moma Dance. So the rest of the set, I was like, it's all right. Standard versions. I love Old Home Place. I wish we got more bluegrass songs, coming back. I think I caught the last one at Camden in 19, the last time they did it. I don't know if they did it between then.
They did it 5/27 for the tour opener, but I think that might have been the first time in quite some time. But I really liked that placement for bluegrass. It just like it was getting a little bit dark, but like there was you're still in that first set feel. That going into Walls of the Cave was really cool. Scott, what about you? What was your overall highlight from this first set?
So I had three highlights. Obviously the Haley's.
You come to the right podcast if you have more than one highlight. So I appreciate that.
I in my home place here. Where you've gone from, if you look at a broad perspective from Haley's, where in the 90s it was 5-6 minutes, and then it branched out in the late 90s to stuff like Portland or Hampton, and then in 2.0 and 3.0 it kind of backtracked into we're going to play for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then it's like Lucy with the football. You're all set for like this great jam, and then Trey's like, no, we're gonna go into something else. And so, where it's like that with Haley's and with Rose's and with AC/DC Bag, and at least Haley's is somewhat more consistent now on those jams that get extended out. So I got very excited when I realized that we were getting a full blown Haley's last night with the jam. And then the jam part of Stash really caught my attention as well. And I really enjoyed that and would have loved for that to go on a little bit longer. And the energy in Walls of the Cave. It's one of the great set closers this band has. And, Kuroda just goes completely off with the lights. And it was straightforward, but just such high energy. And it's a great way to usher you into set break at that point.
It's funny, the Lucy with the football image for Haley's Comet. Like, I feel like there were a lot of moments in early 3.0 where you'd be getting towards the end of a song and you were like, are they going to jam this? Or are they not going to jam it? And Haley's was always the one that my heartbeat, it started racing at that point. Like, are they actually going to do it? And you'd hear Trey give one additional line or mess around with that final line of the song, and you were like, it's gonna happen, it's about to happen.
It's like that micro jam. It's like a minute of the jam, and you're like, they're gonna do it, they're gonna do
Exactly.
But it is crazy, it's become reliable. Like Hershey's version last year from in the first
that was one of my favorite moments of tour last summer tours, the Haley's and the Lonely Trip. I mean,
in the Lonely
gorgeous.
Trip,
yeah,
that was really good. The San Francisco version was great, the Mexico version was really good, and now this, we're at a point where it's you almost expect that you're going to get a Haley's Jam. It's a really nice little feature of where we're at in the band's history. But there was definitely that period in time where you're like, it's never going to come back. I'm never going to hear a Haley's Jam again. And last night was with Fitting. I loved that moment. Megan, what about you? What were some of your highlights as you were listening to the show?
The Space Oddity opener just blew me away. I think about how hard that song is to perform. That takes a lot of rehearsal to perform that song. And I thought it was an incredible performance. Perfect opener, just grab everybody's attention. And I thought it was super cool. And I love that moment. I think opening a cappella is so special. It just feels special when they do it. And it's one of my favorite things when they do it. And I also thought the Haley's was my highlight. I thought it was a really celestial jam, which I guess is on brand for last night, but it just sounded like stars were raining down at the end. Paige was on the piano, and then Trey was doing these dissonant effects, and then Paige switches to the synths, and it sounded very outer space to me, and I loved it.
I'm right there with you, and it goes along with another highlight that I had, which was kind of the middle part of Gotta Jaboo. There was such a cool moment where they all dropped out, the sirens were going, and they just slowly built it up back to the jamming segment of the song. And someone posted on Twitter that, I don't know what Gotta Jaboo has to do with space, but maybe they're playing it in a spacey style. So maybe this is what goes along with the theme. But one thing I was wondering, and Matt Higgins made a comment about this. I'm curious all of your guys' thoughts, because I know you guys pay attention as much as we do over here. It seemed like the band was having technical issues in the first set that they were trying to sort out. I was thinking about that. I think it was the Banger show. Maybe it was night 2 of Great Woods. Trey seemed to be having some issues with his in-ear monitor, and he kept going over to his amp during one of the shows last week. And I noticed he was having issues with his earpiece last night. Is that something that any of you guys have noticed as well? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, he took him out one of the nights, either Great Woods night 2 or Bangor. He literally was back in the audience and took out the earpieces and just went back to playing.
Just playing, hearing the monitors live, basically.
Yeah,
it's hard to pick that up on couch or at the show. On Couch Tour, I all those things. You're instantly and last night I couldn't tell from, what we were seeing.
You can't see from the lawn.
Yeah.
Since that guy mentioned that, I'm thinking, okay, well, they did Space Oddity. If there was some issue, that's an all vocal thing. So let's check the vocals and do a song live, and then let's do an instrumental to make sure all the instruments are right.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's
interesting.
It seems it was wild to me to see it kind of carry over to venues, but it's also interesting to me because the best parts for me of Haley's and the Jaboo were what I would imagine are really difficult moments to play in a concert. They were very quiet. Trey seems to be going to these like repeated riffs as he's moving into jams, and like the Haleys had this where he just kept playing the same kind of riff over and over again. He's for whatever moments like the intro to Stash, which had a very sloppy intro to it, for whatever moments where they seem to be not aligned, he seems to be paying a ton of attention to finding a melody, building off that melody, and then Fishman kind of responding to it from a jamming style. That doesn't strike me as something that's really easy to do in the best of situations, but also when you're having potential technical issues. So it's just something I'm like hearing and noticing early in the tour that's really striking me.
Yeah, I guess if anybody can do it, it's them, right? Like to adapt and do it. And I imagine if it was Trey having monitor issues, he probably would take more of a lead, right? And the other guys would have to follow him until they resolved it. If he couldn't hear them, but they could hear him. Yeah, it's interesting though. They played. I thought they were once they were jamming, they were extremely tight. I didn't see any impact on the improvisation. It's ironic. Maybe it is kind of weird how they, not butcher, but false started Haley's and Stash. Like there was a lot of starting off errors, right? But once they're going, they were just flying.
Stash kind of felt to me like he was still in the effect pedal that he had used in Haley's.
Oh shit!
And started, and oh no, it's like delayed and kind of, and then he clicked that off and was like, all right, let's restart this over properly. Do you guys find, like personally, that's not taking away any of the flow or any of the enjoyment of these shows? Are you guys finding them impacting your enjoyment of where they're at this point in time?
No, not at all. I probably don't even notice in the moment until afterwards. And I think back on it that like, oh, there was a false start there, because in the moment, I don't know. It's happening. It's
or you laugh it off too, right? Like the false start with Stash was just like antics, right? Like that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because he like laughed at Fish, like they like had that exchange, and like it's just like I don't know. I don't think it detracts at all.
I think when you take other bands, they will play a song, finish it, and start a new song. You don't have a lot of segues going from one song to the next.
That's a good point.
So, Haley's is going, and then he calls out Stash and starts to play, and then something's not right and plays it again. And so, when it's not rehearsed like that per se, where it's a finite set list every night, and again where it's not started from scratch, I think you open yourself up to more things going a little awry. So I'll notice it, and then just kind of write off, and then get ready for the actual song and the jam. It's the nature of the beast with this band, where sometimes things might be a little muddier than normal.
Yeah, it's interesting.
We talked to Matt Bush. He was talking about writing set lists for Bobby, and that sometimes he'd have songs into other songs, and Bobby'd be like, "No, we can't do that. They're in two different keys," which is not something I think about. But maybe sometimes Trey calls a song, and then the rest of the band's like, "Wait, that's an E and not an F."
Well, no, but Trey would know better than Matt, though. Right. I don't know. Actually, Scott just changed my mind. It does take away from me. I didn't think it did, because I don't like look back and I'm like, oh, that hiccup took me out or made me upset. But looking back at this show, the second set felt so much more polished and incredible for me. And obviously second sets always have that energy, but part of it was the perfect segues. So maybe even though the Haley's was really good and the Stash was really good and all these things were really good, if it just had a little more butter to the segues or a clean stop and start, right, one or the other, maybe it would have the overall picture of the set would be reflected better in my mind. But because there was almost like a little interruptions, maybe that does have an effect on how I perceive it.
Well, I mean, you look at Hampton 03 where they had to restart the You Enjoy Myself, so it's not a guarantee that starting from scratch it's going to lift off correctly.
Yeah, in Merriweather a couple of years ago, they stopped, I think twice in the same show. They had to stop a song and restart it.
Yeah, I think it's the eternal appeal to me about this band, though, is that like we're all seeing them in these massive venues, and the production is some of the best in rock music. But part of the appeal is that you're seeing a band that has the energy of a bar band, you know, in the sense that like we're all just hanging out. Like we're not here to be like they're up on stage, we're in the crowd, but there's a sense within their shows, and there's a continual vibe of like we're all together, we're all hanging out in this environment. The energy that you guys provide, that we provide, it all kind of works together. It goes back to Trey's comment in Bittersweet Motel that like people are not paying money to, you know, see us nail every single change. And I think I tend to fall on the line of that like I'd rather have the in the moment, oh shit, we started Stash and I had this effect pedal on that shouldn't be there, and so we're all off base and we need to just like start that over again. They laugh, the audience laughs, and then we have a great version of Stash. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
interesting to me like where they're at right now, because they're, you know, they're approaching 60 years old, and these sorts of things happen. And they've happened since they were
They've always
25.
happened. And
Yeah, and I've never wanted this band to be perfect. If they were perfect,
Right.
they wouldn't be this band. If they were flawless every night, they would have a very boring show. You know, I think we only get the kinds of shows we get in the second
if they
set
were
that we just
flawless
got.
every night, we
they're
would have
risky.
really boring shows.
Yeah, they're
Right.
risky, you know? They're taking risks and they're taking chances and they're inventing every night. So they're not going to nail every single composed section and every segue. And the fact that they nail as many as they do is fucking incredible, honestly.
Yeah.
Really
I mean,
is.
I think we all love Fish. It's interesting when we do a show like this, right? And we're like recapping, I become hyper critical and more analytical than I am in the experience. Like at the show, I'm having a blast and I love it, right? But then you have to like reflect and be like, oh, talk about, you know, how the show went. So obviously, like I think some of the flaws stick out more than I would care as a Fish fan. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
providing
absolutely.
commentary for, you know, this. I feel like it changes your perspective on that slightly.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
as Ben Goodrich just said, Trey listens to the podcast, and it's our
Mhm.
job here in the day after to critique every single flub so that he does not do that again
Damn it,
tonight.
Trey.
That's our job. That's it. I want to give us a bunch of time to talk set 2, because set
Mhm.
2 is incredible. I'm going to show my hand immediately. I think it's an outstanding set. Super, super incredible flow. Great jamming. Before we do that, though, we do have to talk about one part of the show that is very, very important, and that is Set Break. Megan, do you want to tell us a bit about our sponsor for Set Break, and we can dive into that?
Guess who it is, guys? It's Sunset Lake CBD. And they have the best line of smokable hemp products for the old deadhead or the young fish fan, whether you're hypercritical or you just like to go with the flow. CBD is there for you for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis, but without the paranoid and anxious side effects. They've got 9 different strains from this year's harvest, and there's really something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show, like at the Mann tonight, and Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. And they have this awesome farm-to-table approach, so they have really great pricing because they're shipping their products directly from their farm to your door, and they have really fast shipping. So check them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com. You can use the coupon code HFPod, and you're going to get 20% off all your products. I'm going to be using some Sunset Lake tonight after I get off Wook Plus, because that is a late night for me. So I'm going to be like pumped up. When I was on last week, I was like really excited. Afterwards, I couldn't fall asleep. Took some Sunset Lake, fell right asleep. So check them out.
And with this being our Set Break sponsor, we have to ask you all, Scott, starting with you, what did you do during Set Break last night? And do you have a routine during Set Break?
I usually stay in my spot. Especially last night with it still being warm out. I had a couple of people that found me, and just kind of, decompressed a little bit from the set. Just gathered my thoughts, and I'll usually get a tweet or two out when the set's over with like the song timings and any particular highlights or stats. I really, and this sounds kind of hypocritical, where coming from someone who live tweets an entire show, but I like to try and stay in the moment. So I will tweet out like the songs and some notes, but I'm not going to go digging around on Fishnet for like, oh, well, this is the first Space Oddity in 5 years. I can go back and grab
Mhm.
those notes at the set break. And or this morning where I pulled up like the 6 tweezer fests that had tweezer 3 or more times, and the longest tailies, whatever. So it's a chance to catch up to people that I'm sitting around as well. But I'll usually stay put. But I have a routine where I'll get the food and go to the bathroom before the show starts, and I usually don't need to go to the bathroom until after the show. Probably a little TMI there, but everyone has their.
No, this is good strategy, man. We need this. This is
Impressive.
good.
You're drinking a gallon of water. You figure you would have had to run.
I know.
Yeah,
I could never do that. I'm impressed.
I
Oh,
was
wow,
good
that's
till like
cool.
the middle of set 2, and then I figure it's only like 20-30 minutes. I can make it, and then just
We can do it.
hit the head after the show. But that's the most water I've ever had at a show last night, I think. I was surprised that I had like an empty Nalgene, and I kept filling it, and I'm like, oh, the jug's empty.
It's
It
gone.
run out of water. But I think it's just so important to be hydrated for these shows with the Mann shows and Bethel this weekend. It's super, super vital.
That's a good point. That's a very
Anyway,
good
that's a
PSA.
long answer to a short question. So
No,
next.
it's good. It's good set break. Tim and Kevin, what do you have a set break routine, and what did you guys do last night?
I usually plop my butt down wherever I am and just sit there, do my lotus position and clear my head, and
It's the craziest shit.
and then I'll check my phone because I got 2 kids. And for one of them is going to have texted me at some point during the first set.
I'm meeting Kev on the internet and like through Book Plus and stuff. I always imagine in my head that he'd be like super wild, but at set break he always is just like a Buddhist monk, like meditating, and it's awesome. I do always try to hit the bathrooms at set break, even if I don't feel in the moment like I necessarily have to, for 2 reasons. One is usually the line, everything is long enough to where by the time I get there, I have to. And then 2 is I don't want to feel that during the set, right? Like, but you know what I mean? Like, you've been drinking beer and water all day. Like, I just want to be safe because I never want to miss a second. Like, people talk about peace songs. I was like, I use a peace set break. Like, I don't need a peace song because you plan ahead. Wait, so quick side story. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but this has to do with you guys. I met a couple of people last night at set break that recognized us, and they were thrilled about this partnership with you guys. They're like, we love HFPod, we love Osiris. I'm so happy you guys are working together. You guys are amazing. And we're really
that's so cool.
Yeah, they loved it. And so the feedback off the streets and off the set break, they love this.
I got one of your playing cards last night.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, that event's gonna be sick.
You were paying somebody to stand out front hand.
It was probably just RJ.
I would have recognized him. I think I would have recognized
That's
RJ.
true.
I love it. Set break for me. I'm right there with you guys, Kevin and Scott. I just sit down. Like, this is my spot, and I can't do anything. I can't go and do food. I can't go and get a drink refill. Like, I'm there because, hey, second set is going to start here pretty soon. And the anxiety, the pre-show anxiety, it all returns once the lights go back up. So I'm right there for set 2. And I have to say, as we move into the second set, we have to highlight a comment from HFPod co-host Jonathan Hart. Just back to the first set discussion. When the lights are down, Fish is the greatest. In the morning, what a disaster. which is a great transition here into the second set, which reads more tweezer cities with one of these guys. Tweezer passing through Isabella, Tweezer, and Isabella of note has only a 10-show gap, which is just crazy. It's like
kind of crazy.
One of the least show gaps of the entire show. Back into Tweezer, into Mercury, back into Piper, back into Tweezer, 2001, and Character Zero, which had "I'm waiting for the man" quotes, which I lost my mind on the couch at about 9:30 at night. My wife was like, "What happened? What happened?" Had to explain. Trey's quoting Lou Reed. This is incredible. Scott, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you said these words which made me put you on the spot. So if you don't have the answer, don't worry.
Bring it.
Can you name the 6 other Tweezer Fests that have happened?
Let's see here. I'm going to go backwards. It was the Met in Philly in 2019. I think Raleigh in 2019. There was a Merriweather show in 2014. Atlantic City in 2010. The Zeppelin set. Big Birch. And that's 5.
That's 5.
I think.
I'm
I'd have to
pulling
cheat and go
up
look at my
Bomb
tweets for the
Factory?
6th.
Wait, what about the Bomb Factory?
So
Is that
the Bomb Factory, which I always thought was like a Tweezer Fest, is really just like a 45-minute tweezer, and then it goes into like a bunch of segues, and then ends up a tweezer reprise. So it's not
back and
it's
forth.
not the same as like weaving in and out of tweezer. And LA last year had tweezer twice, and then it had teases, but it wasn't like full-fledged tweezers. So there are other examples, but yeah. Kevin, I automatically thought of like the Bomb Factory as being like it was the Tweezer Fest. Like, I was getting tapes and whatever, it's like the Tweezer Fest. I'm like, well, it's not quite what I thought it was.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely the Met, Raleigh 2018. I'm thinking that was more Antelope and Runaway Jim, but I think
it was Camden, Jersey.
Camden.
You're right.
Camden 2019.
There was
so 2 jerseys.
Yes.
But yeah, because the North Carolina show was the Runaway Antelope.
Which
Yeah.
is also
The-
super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I was. Thank you.
That was wild. That was such a wild one.
I happened to be at 3 of those, and I thought the Merriweather one was my favorite. But last night, I probably will slowly creep into my favorite of the Tweezer Fest. It's definitely up there.
Well, and the one
choose one
about
of your
last
favorite
night.
kids. It's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I like you.
Yeah, I just
No, I
love
like
them
you. I like you.
I'm looking it up as well right now. The Roxy show, which is just like a mashup of so many different fests. You've got 2 tweezers based on fish.net, and then a bunch of Mike songs and HFPod grooves, and then a tweezer reprise to end it. So I don't think that exactly captures it, but maybe we can sneak that one in there, because that is the fest set. That is a wild set. But getting to this, go ahead.
What I had is not like the end all. I just took something that was basic stats from Fish.
You're Scott Marks. Well, you are the end all. You're the one that settles
Yeah,
down.
we're counting on you, Scott. We're counting on you for this.
No, as
You are the
George
end.
Carlin said, these are my rules. I make them up. No,
Exactly.
it's, you could, I had posted like the 6 things this morning, and then people were like, well, what about this? And what about this? And, it's whatever people really think. It's the same thing with like if you have a 4-song set or 5-song set. Well, if the song goes back into something, how many songs is it? Well, it's really up to you to decide.
Mhm.
So what's the answer? Was it a 5-song set or a 6-song set?
For Bangor,
Yeah.
6.
6.
So
We
There it is.
were debating, and you're the answer. So
I said if you called
That's the rules.
Oasis, if you called the second one reprise, then you could count it as 5.
There you go.
that's true.
Hmm.
It's 5 different songs, but it's 6 songs.
it's a 6-song.
But the same thing with that MSG show a couple of years ago with the Ruby Waves and the Fantastic
Yeah.
Tweezer, where it's like, is it 4 songs or 6? Oh,
Right.
I wrote 6, but someone else might think
talk
it's
about
4.
on the lot.
Right.
Well, and this is a really good transition into this set overall, because I think the interpretation aspect of it, the organic nature of this, really creates this sense of like there's something about this set that I absolutely loved. I'm going to show my cards immediately. I am not the biggest Segway Fest fan from a Fish standpoint. It was an aspect I loved about set listing and about show construction when I first got into the band. It really blew me away. Now I'm at a point where like I want really good song selection that flows and deep jamming. That is my calling card, is like the 30-minute Down with Disease from the other night. That is everything I want out of Fish. That said, I loved everything about this set last night, and the way that I can justify that contradictory statement that I just made, and I apologize for contradicting myself on a podcast. My goodness, first person ever. I thought last night flowed incredibly well. I got the impression, I could be totally wrong about this. I'm happy to be wrong. I feel sometimes like when there is a Segway Fest set, it feels like something that is intentional. Like the band wanted to do this. They wanted to play a bunch of songs and mash them up. I got that impression last year at Deer Creek. Again, could be totally wrong, but that's just how I felt about it. Last night felt as though they went into Tweezer and went into this incredible jam out of Tweezer, and out of nowhere ended up in Cities. And it was a Bowie Cities Bowie type of segue into Cities, and then ended up back in Tweezer. And from there, it kind of took on a mind of its own. That was how I took it. And everything from there just flowed really nicely for me. Scott, since you make the rules, I want to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on the statement that I just made? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what were your thoughts on the set overall?
So it kind of depends on my mood. I mean, you don't have, that's a great answer. Which way is the wind blowing? Let me give you this answer. No, I think I like the sets like last night. It keeps me on my toes, and it's exciting stuff. I also like the stuff from Bangor, where you had the 30-minute disease, where you have time to give a jam space to grow. With that disease, you can probably pinpoint it to like 17 minutes in, when Fishman just started taking over on drums, in the last 13 minutes were just epic stuff. And it's not to say that last night didn't have epic stuff, or that you can't have a jam be epic for like 10, 15 minutes. We have this 20-minute jam chart, or 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or whatever, but it's just a number. And so I think to be able to pull off something like the Tweezer Cities Tweezer passing through seamlessly, it takes a lot of skill. And it's one thing to have like a song coming out of the end of something else, like the Isabella came out passing through. It's like, all right, we haven't stopped playing, but now we're going to play Isabella, as opposed to it's a more organic thing where you might have the drums at the end of Tweezer, and then Trey starts playing the Cities line. It's not like a ripcord. It's just an idea that comes from somebody in the band. Mike had been playing around with the passing through for, several shows, but for at least like the last minute of that second Tweezer, and then finally the rest of the band starts playing it. So I think it's kind of cool when you have one of these seamless sets that goes from start to finish. I mean, there are no pauses from the start of the set and more to Character Zero at the end, and that the core of it was those arrow jams, I guess, or those arrow segues from Tweezer through passing through, which is about 28, 26 minutes of music right there. That was just pure nonstop, without any real planning, I think.
It got me thinking. One thing I was hearing throughout the Great Woods run, it felt like, people always talk about like jamming out of a song, and like the song is kind of the launching pad for a jam that comes out of it. It kind of felt to me like they were jamming through songs, where a lot of like the Great Woods segments, especially in the second sets, like the Blaze On is kind of a perfect example. It reminded me of the Mexico 2017 No Man No Man's Land, the Party Time from Madison Square Garden 2016 that came out of Light. These moments where the band was playing a song within a jam, and like they never really stopped playing the jam, but the jam found the themes of the song enough that they could play that. Like that Blaze On was just like sultry and grooving, and it didn't really like ever feel totally like Blaze On. And last night felt like an advanced version of what they were doing at Great Woods, where as Jonathan mentioned, as you mentioned as well, Scott, Mike, I think it was the Charleston show from 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago, where he starts singing passing through, and Trey's like, no, we're still jamming Light here. Like let's not get ahead of ourselves. But like a lot of these songs
Trey said
felt
no.
as though Trey
Yeah.
said no. A lot of these songs he had to at some point. Matt Higgins here posts Cities into Passing Through from Shoreline last summer is another example. I agree with that completely, where it almost feels like the song is a natural offshoot of a jam rather than we're going to take the song and play a jam off of it. We're going to kind of allow these jams to sprinkle their way through. Tim and Kevin, what were your guys' thoughts on the overall set and kind of what we're talking about here throughout the set?
I think it's different with Tweezer when you have these passing of the jam and back and forth type thing, because they can so seamlessly break into a type 2 jam or break into like the middle, what feels like the middle of a jam at a Tweezer, that sometimes takes a lot more to build up out of, because it wasn't just that they kept playing the Tweezer theme and doing random things. They were establishing themes and feels and grooves in the first Tweezer that they also brought back. So it wasn't just recalling, you know what I mean? So there was, I feel like the extra level, the sophistication is the actual ability to like tier it and to keep introducing new aspects of the jam that ultimately, you know, resolves at the end of that massive string, right? It's kind of like ties it all together. Also, the Cities, I think, was the perfect choice, right? Because I feel like you can also mash up out of Tweezer songs that don't propel it forward. And I think Cities coming out of the first Tweezer was a great choice to like really help propel it.
I felt like I really, in the moment last night when they started playing Cities, it seemed to me like it wasn't planned. Like they ended up there kind of thing, as opposed to having Trey laying it out. Going back to what you were saying about planning out Segway Fest. And I think that once they did the city and went back into Tweezer, they were like, all right, we're here now. Let's see where we can take this.
That Tweezer still had meat on the bone, and then we stumbled into Cities, but I want to go back and eat that Tweezer a little bit more, right? So I want to
get back to the buffet.
I had other ideas to do with that.
Well, and it wasn't a lot of like, oftentimes with these Segway Fest sets, they kind of go back into a song as like a reference point, and then just as soon as they're into another song, and it's like a 90-minute tracked performance. A lot of these Tweezers, when they came back into them, they were like 4 minutes in length, and they were like really bringing new ideas to the table and then finding another song. Megan, I know you're dying to share your thoughts here about this set. What did you think overall about this?
This is like the set of my dreams. I love when they go in and out of songs. And as someone who loves the funk, I mean, it's probably not a surprise. It was so funky. The initial jam out of Tweezer was so melodic and dancey. It was just really pretty, had this like effortless feel. And then they just went into this funk. And yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo what everyone said, that segue into Cities was just so butter and so perfect. And I think that whole section from the Tweezer, Cities, Tweezer, and Passing Through was just some of the best music I've heard in a while from them. It just sounded so beautiful and easy and fun and funky. You've got the like Sissy Strut kind of quotes in that last jam. I mean, this was just an awesome stretch of music. I think they sounded so happy and energized and playful, and I think the whole set was just awesome. So many songs I'm wanting to hear. So this was like the kind of set where when you're on couch tour, you're like, all right, these shows are really good. I hope like they're saving some stuff for my shows. You know, it's kind of like that selfish feeling. But no, yeah, it was an awesome set. I loved it. I was saying last week after night 2 of Great Woods, it's like the summer of the Segway, and it really feels like that. Like they're just really hitting these in a lot of ways. That's exciting.
I thought I had posted last night that this was, and in my opinion at least, one of the best sets of 4.0.
I'd agree with that.
You know, and it wasn't a 4-song set. It wasn't 20, 30-minute jams, but just the overall flow from in the high energy. You know, we joke sometimes about like the fourth quarter where, you know, you'll have the first half of the set, second set, which is great, and then it kind of dips off in energy or song selection, and then there wasn't any of that last night. It was just high energy from start to finish. You know, and you got more as a set opener instead of a show closer or set closer, and you knew that it wasn't going to be the jam there. And I had tweeted, you know, like a minute or two into more, like I hope Tweezer shows up next, and there it was.
It was breathless, this whole
yeah.
set. I mean, there's not a moment that the energy dips at all. They don't take a pause. And that to me is when you know that they're really locked in.
Yeah, and it really showcases, like, we haven't really mentioned the Piper. And to me, the jamming in the Piper, that along with like a few moments in the first Tweezer as well as the Haleys from the first set, like, I'm starting to hear, we talked about this a lot during the spring tour. It felt as though a lot of the same ideas that they had really peaked in summer and fall of 2021 had kind of bled over. And I really liked the playing. I loved the jamming, but I wasn't hearing a lot of, like, personally speaking, I wasn't hearing a lot of like new sounds and evolutions. And we talked a lot during that tour about, like, does the band need to evolve to keep people, you know, on the edge of their seat, or is like finding a really cool sound and subtly building off of it, you know, still just as exciting as parts of last year were. And I'm really starting to find in parts of the Disease, in what I mentioned here from last night's show, it sounds like they're taking ideas from last year and finding new passageways, be it these riffs that Trey's playing, be it Fishman just like attacking his drum set as if it like did something horrible to him and his family and he needs to like beat it into submission.
Just
like
to
the
break
connection
him as a
between the
kid.
two of them. You know, Paige, like, I remember there was a moment during the Haleys where the camera was locked on him at one of his synthesizers, and there wasn't any inkling that he wanted to even turn around and look at the remainder, the other three bandmates. He just wanted to stay at the synths and stay in that moment. There seems to be a lot of patience. Also, Mike Gordon is like loud, and you can hear full riffs from him and things that, like, I feel like people were talking about throughout last year, where is Mike staying a little bit in the shadows because the effects Trey's playing with sound like he's playing a bass guitar at times. There just seems to be a lot of full band communication happening in these first few jams from tour, and like first few shows, and to have a set like last night, which you would expect to happen maybe halfway through a tour, for them to connect in this sort of manner almost out the gates just seems really impressive to me.
Super impressive. The consistency for the start of tour compared to the spring too. I mean, I had a great time, and I think we're all fairly positive people, but Charleston and even Deer Creek weren't the same, like at the same level that the summer and fall last year. Those were, you know, such incredible tours. And I think this has been a really consistently good start to the tour, right? There's been like one or two sets where I'm like, it's not the best, but I think they've been playing incredibly well.
Agree.
Ironically, though, with the patience, I agree. They feel patient, but then when you look at the set list, there's way less drawn out jams than there was over the last like 2 years, right? It feels like they've only had one go post 20 so far. But it's weird. Playing feels patient, but at the same time, the jams are more, I guess.
That will be the only plus 20-minute jam all tour.
You're going to use another button from you. Terrible.
I think as well. Go ahead, Scott.
One other thing that caught my mind, which I wanted to make sure we at least mentioned, was Fishman during 2001. During those little melody things, he just dropped half of his drums, and either a tempo change or less involved in the mix. I never heard that before. I just thought it was
either.
Caught my attention.
I think the first time was a mistake, and he did the classic jazz thing where he's like kept doing it, and then it turned into something. I mean, it went into a halftime, and I don't know if he missed something, but that hollowness to it was a really cool sound.
Yeah,
you know, dropping the instrumentation, and then when he did it again, and like to reaffirm that it wasn't a mistake was awesome. That was a very cool part of that jam, actually. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, if you guys have a chance to watch it on like a webcast rip or whatever, they had the camera right on him at that moment, and you could just see him like hitting his toms and like going back and forth, and they then flashed to Trey, who just had the biggest smile on his face. He was loving it. It was a really cool moment.
Super cool.
And I think as well, like we talk, you know, you mentioned fourth quarters. You could technically say that when Mercury starts, that's kind of the entry point to the fourth quarter of this show. And Mercury Piper has a ton of creativity. This is the last tweezer, the 2001 as we're talking about, but then the character Zero, which Trey in his dorky way emphasizes the man. We're in the man playing the song about the man Mulcahy, has the Lou Reed quotes in there. It just, everything felt elevated in a really cool way. So we're going to go around. We'll start with you, Megan. What, you have to pick one,
Oh boy.
maybe two, maybe three, maybe four, maybe the whole set. Who knows? You guys go. Megan, what was your highlight of last night's second set?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be the segue into cities and then back into tweezer and then into passing through. That was my highlight.
That's a good highlight. Scott, how about you?
Really, just the whole second set. I don't know if I could really pull one highlight versus another.
That's it. That's the
I
highlight.
love the 2001 because our buddy Steely Tom was there, and we've been talking for days about them doing Tweezer 2001, and we got
did
it.
it.
That's the
for 'em.
best.
They got it. How about you, Tim?
I can't remember which tweezer it was, like which segment, but there was a segment towards the end. I think it was the one before Mercury that got bleepy and bloopy and spacey and weird. And it was only like a nice like 3 minutes of this type of jam, but it was like on a set that was already here, this little bloop where like just crested over any other moment so far of tour. So I feel like whatever that moment, I'm pretty sure, I'll go back and listen. I'm pretty sure it's the one segment between Isabella and Mercury, but there's that like 3 or 4 minutes of, and I thought it was incredible.
That was the Sissy Strut tease.
Oh yeah, maybe it was in there.
I think
Maybe that's what it was. Fucking meters are in my ear.
Yeah, Kevin's right. The Sissy Strut and the Isabella came after that. That Isabella, so it was the third tweezer.
Yeah, so that must have been the section that really. Yeah, so that's my answer.
That's my choice.
Well, that reminded me, I don't have it in front of me, but there's, a segment of that Merriweather 2014 second set where I think they go back into tweezer and it becomes this like spacey and beautiful jam. It might be the one that goes into Waiting All Night. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't, I can't specifically identify it, but it's one of the things I do love about these type of segue sets is when they go back into tweezer 6 or 7 songs later, they don't have any like all they have to do is play the riff. And then, okay, cool, they're playing tweezer now.
Right.
And then they go into the jam, and that usually just like launches them off into some very creative space. For me, that space came in Piper. And Piper is one of like 5 Fish songs I will hear at every single show, and I don't care. Repeat it every time I'm there. There's no complaints from me. I love it. There was a very slight slow build, just a little slow build, which was really nice. And then we go into the song and go into the jam. And Piper, if you think back to this over the last year or so, Piper has had some absolutely incredible performances. I'm just pulling up the stats here right now to share a few, but you had a really great one from Charleston that came out of Egg in a Hole, went into Caspian. The MSG run that comes in the last night, following that excellent No Men. The Piper was honestly like what I go back to on a regular basis. A really good one, I believe, from 1030 at MGM Grand. I saw an awesome one at Chula Vista. And then the 1015 one that happened, kind of one of the only jams in that fall tour opening show. So a lot of really, really good stuff here.
There's no bad Piper.
That's a good point. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. It's one of those songs that always leads to something.
Yeah, if there's a batting average, it's around 1,000 for Piper. It's just it's amazing.
I love that, and we speak batting averages here. It's why we are proponents of
You
the
do,
song.
Brian. You
I
do.
do. Which is why I'm a proponent of the song Soul Planet. It might be the greatest Fish song of all time.
Has a
if
high
you judge
batting
based
average.
on batting average. So anyone have any final thoughts about night one at the Man in Philadelphia?
I don't know that they're going to be able to top it tonight, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I
But
said
Kevin,
that
this
after
was
the
your
Bangor
night of the
episode.
tour, right? This is Man Night 2. You said it's going to be the show of the tour, so let's see.
Yeah, we both
You
did.
built this up in our wish list episode.
Yes.
Well, we were off by one night. Well, we'll see. Maybe we weren't.
Hey, maybe we weren't.
It was such
Yeah.
a good show that we just did the whole recap of the show and didn't barely talk about Isabella, right? And that's also part because they just played it, 10 shows ago. But like a set list where you don't mention Isabella in the recap is a pretty good show.
Totally.
There's so much still left on the table tonight that has not been played in the last 4
We're
shows.
going to get that huge simple tonight.
Ooh,
There it is.
You enjoy
Kevin, I
myself.
like that.
That'd be great.
I'm looking at. I would love that. I'm looking at the stats for Isabella. So it's been played 14 times. I'm just going to run through these really quickly here for you. The first one, 6/13/97. Following that, you get a 23 show gap, an 11 show gap, and then from 8/13/97 through 12/30/97, you get 6, 4, 9, 4, and 4 show gaps. But from there, you get 13 shows, 574 shows until MSG, the final night of the Baker's Dozen.
That was the best.
Shows,
that
that one ruled.
Moment.
83 shows until 12/8/2019 in the Encore. 53 shows until 5/28/2022. 9 shows until 7/19/2022. It's the first time since 1997 that Isabella has been in a sub 10 show gap. That's got to be why we're not talking about it. It's wild that it's just like, oh yeah, they're playing Isabella. Cool. Like that is not something I ever thought would ever happen ever again. Because
here we are.
It's in the rotate. It's got such a groove. Maybe Trey rediscovered how easy it is to slip into it, and
it's such a fun groove. It's so much fun.
It's become commonplace now. Isabella is a common song.
Yes.
I was in
Isabella, man, come on.
People will be complaining about it soon.
I was in a bar in Chicago on the last night of the Baker's Dozen. They were streaming the shows, and when they started playing Isabella, you would have thought we won the World Series. The place just like beer was flying everywhere. People were hugging. Like it was nobody thought they would ever do it, and they saved it for the final of the Baker's Dozen. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. So, Kevin Ritter is feeling a huge birds of a feather tonight, and Matt Higgins is manifesting an extra large cross-eyed, which I'd be down with all of those.
Yeah,
let's do
me too.
Cross-eyed. Let's go 22 minutes. Let's go into birds. Let's go 16 minutes. Let's go into simple. Let's go 27 minutes, and let's be done with the set. How about that? Is that too much to ask? Probably. No. But
was Hershey around the same point in tour last year? It was after like 3 or 4 shows? Because I feel like the hail. There's a lot of I don't know if it's just Pennsylvania and local for me, but like I've
that
birds
Hershey night too.
Sense.
Yeah.
Hershey was it was 1 week later. So it was, next week we've got those 2 Jones Beach shows. So that would be like the Hershey run.
That would be the Hershey, yeah.
This is the Nashville run though, time of tour last year, which if you recall, night 1 in Nashville was okay. There's some all right moments, but night 2 has an outstanding second set that I still go back to on a regular basis.
That Ghost into Gin is probably my favorite thing from summer tour last year.
And I was texting with a couple of buddies last night, and this feels to me, and we'll wrap up here in a sec, but this feels to me like the way that summer tour last year started, where you had that Arkansas show was kind of okay, what's going on, and then right away when they go to Alabama and Alpharetta, and then the second night in Nashville, it's like the tour just went off on a tear, and it really didn't look back. Like there's really no true weak spots in the overall tour. There's a couple iffy shows here and there, but it felt like every night kind of topped itself. And I don't want to make any wild predictions, but like this has
that's what Brian's saying is it's every night's going to be better than the last.
That's what I'm saying. I guarantee it. Put your money on it here. When you get to AC, bet on every Fish show being better than the last. All right. Scott, Tim, Kevin, thank you guys so much for giving us some time here in the day after the show. We will be watching tonight, and we'll be looking forward to whatever's going to happen at the Mann.
Thank
we'll
you
be
so
watching
much for
Megan
tonight.
Yep, I'll see you guys later tonight. Oh, you guys will be at the show. I'll just be with Travis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Lenny might stop by.
Lenny Duncan from Blackberry Jams podcast is going to be on also with us.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Fun.
Well, hopefully he'll watch the show tonight. Last night he was on, and I don't think he watched the show. So.
That's awesome.
Well,
thank you guys
blind
so much.
Commentary. That works. That works. You just come in. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us. We really appreciate all your thoughts, and we will talk with you guys a little bit further down the road.
Sounds great.
Thanks,
See you guys.
guys.
All right. That was fun.
That was fun.
That's a good
I wish
show.
I was going a lot right now. I'm
I
having
know.
FOMO.
It's 2:15 in Philly. This is like the time when I start to get a little stressed out. Like we got to get going.
Yeah,
We got to pack up the
exactly.
cooler. We got to make sure everyone's got everything. Do you have your tickets? You have your tickets? Okay, you got your tickets. You're the one who always loses your tickets. You need to have your tickets. I'm not going to think about your tickets for the rest of the show. That's me. I drop into full dad mode going into
Yeah, me
shows, but
too.
I'm right there with you. We will be back tomorrow.
Yeah,
Tomorrow at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We have an excellent guest, a local guest, a contributor to other Osiris podcasts, one of the most special people in the larger fish community, Miss Felicia D'Ambrosio, who is going to be recapping Mann Night 2 with us. It should be a ton of fun. I'm excited for it. And then we got Bethel this weekend, and we got Hartford this weekend. I mean, we are moving into tour as we speak right now. So everybody take care of each other, take care of yourself, enjoy the show tonight, either in the venue or on the couch like we'll be doing. And we'll talk with you all here soon.
Bye, guys.